Welcome to another episode of Do You Really Know God? Today we're going to have the episode of Why Should You Follow God? We're going to start off with a Bible quote. Give me one sec, we'll be right there. It's going to be Psalms 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in the green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod, your staff, they comfort me. You prepare the table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cups overflow. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Oh, that was a long verse.
It is, but it's kind of a good verse because it teaches you, tells you about the good and bad.
Right.
It tells you basically he's going to give you green pastures and he's going to give you food to eat. He's going to cuddle you, I guess you can say, with love. But you're also going to go through some dark times and hard times. And
right, and that's with everything.
Even though you're in there, he's still with you. You just got to rely on him.
Right.
And the other thing is like they talk about, he has his rod and his staff. He's there to protect you. You just got to let him protect you. A lot of stuff going on in the world today is nobody lets God protect them because God is kicked out of everything. Something that I want to touch base on is I hear a lot of people they'll talk about what makes you so much into being a believer of Jesus Christ and God and everything else. And so much stuff that we talked about is so much factual stuff to say that it actually happened in a time.
Right.
There's proof about Jesus Christ's brother being out there. He was also a carpenter. There's a lot of his works that were around for many, many years that's documented. There's obviously proof of Jesus Christ. And there's proof of all the apostles. And one thing, I was talking with somebody the other day, and they're like, they made a comment of, they like the Old Testament because it's more spoken from God, but they don't believe in the New Testament because it's just people giving their own theories.
Right.
And I had to correct them because it's not people giving their own theories. These are people who actually walked with Jesus Christ. They're given the experience that Jesus Christ taught them. So it's not their own theories. If you listen to it, they don't talk about their own word, and they talk about Jesus Christ's teachings. And they talk about his parables. And they talk about everything that he's done. And they're not talking of that what they believe.
Right. It's kind of God speaking through them.
That and their experiences, because they were walking with Jesus. And like I told him that, and he's like, wow. He goes, I wasn't thinking of it that way. He goes, I was just thinking it was just people writing about Jesus or whatever. I said, no.
Right.
If you actually read it, and obviously this person didn't read the New Testament. If you actually read it, they talk about their experiences with Jesus, the walk they did with Jesus. And there's actually a new movie out that you can download called The Chosen. And it has its own network. And they only have season 1 out because they're trying to come up with enough money to build season 2. And they want to get up to like 8 seasons. And it's all just about Jesus' life.
Right.
And I watched season 1, and season 1 is pretty amazing. It talked about a lot about how he picked the disciples as he went through.
Right, and you showed me a clip from it the other day, right? The girl from
Somalia, yes.
Yep.
That was amazing, and that, believe it or not, there's a lot of writings, not even just in the Bible, there's writings outside the Bible about that whole incident. And it makes you know that if Jesus Christ wasn't really God and the Messiah, how did he know that she was going to be there at noon on that day to get water?
Right.
I mean, it's not like today where you got Facebook and she posts every day, hey, I'm going to get water at the well.
Right.
Being a stalker back in that day was not so easy. You had a lot of ground to cover and a lot of walking to do.
Right.
And you're thinking about you're in Somalia, which is a lot of it's all deserts and fields. So if you're trying to stalk somebody, it's kind of hard to stalk somebody and not be noticed when all you gotta do is turn around and where are you gonna hide behind a freaking piece of sand, kind of build yourself a little sand castle or something.
Right.
So you can't stalk. So it just proves to show that he basically knew her without knowing her.
And he did that a few times with a few different people, didn't he?
He did that with most of the disciples. With Simon, and the thing is when he met the disciples, and this is written on multiple things, not even in the Bible. There's proof readings and writings of people who witness stuff.
Right. Well, there's writings of Apollo, who was a ancient Greek philosopher, and in his writings there's actually mentions of Jesus from Nazareth, and there's mentions of this guy who walked around and claimed to be the Messiah.
Yep. And the thing is like the whole experience with Simon. If you read the backstory of Simon was a fisherman. Now Simon had a few issues with gambling and drinking and living life to the fullest.
Right.
I guess we could say.
Living a party lifestyle.
Well, with that being said, he blew most of his money and he's way behind on taxes for the Romans.
Right.
And it was kind of amazing because that little story, and there's multiple stories, there's actually gods that witnessed Simon being able to come up with the money to pay the back taxes, because you got to a point where Matthew, who was not a disciple yet, Matthew was actually a tax collector. And the Romans made a deal with Simon on his taxes, saying, hey, you owe us a lot of money in taxes. Right. But we'll forgive your taxes, but you need to turn in your buddies who are doing illegal fishing. And Simon made the deal, and he said, okay, I'll do it. If it's going to save me from going to jail in Roman jails,
right,
I'll do it. And there was actually a thing, and Simon and the gods were actually out on the waters late at night trying to catch fishermen. And they caught a trap, and Simon seen the trap, and he recognized the trap. It was his buddies. And Roman gods are like, oh, you know where they are? Take me to them. So Simon acted like he's taking them to him. And then they hit ground. Because Simon knew, obviously being a fisherman, he knew where the shallow parts of the water. Well, they hit the ground and they wound up wrecking the boat and they never got to him and this, that, and the other. And the Romans actually got really bad. And they blamed Simon. They said, oh, you knew that we were going to bottom out here. You knew this and knew that. So the deal was pretty much off, and they actually had Matthew following Simon and watching Simon, everything he does. Because Matthew, even though he is a Jew, he was a tax collector. And back then, a tax collector was... he was worse than pond scum. you were hated by the Jews because you worked for the Romans, and you was hated by the Romans because you was a Jew.
Right.
So you was like the lowest of low of all lows. But with that, because he's a tax collector and the way he did it, Simon made a lot of money. He is rich. Very, very, very rich. Not Simon, Matthew was very rich. But because he's a tax collector, even his own parents disowned him.
Mm.
And they would not even take any of his money. Like, if he tried to help them, they wouldn't take it. And his parents were poor. And they fully disowned him. They would not. His father would not even see him. And long story short, the Romans had him following Simon to see what he's up to after the whole boat collection and stuff. And Matthew actually told the Roman emperor, well, it wasn't the emperor, it was like the sub-emperor.
The Pharaoh.
Well, no, Pharaoh was more like a religious, but he's like the he wasn't Caesar. Caesar was the emperor of Rome, but he's like a sub-emperor of the Jews. And Matthew even told the sub-emperor, hey, I don't know why you're making a deal with this guy Simon, because he's going to burn you.
Right.
And he's kind of ratting out Simon, and he didn't know Simon. But he was one that was dedicated to his job. But he is very well protected by the Romans because he's a tax collector, and obviously he's very, very wealthy. Well, he was actually at the lake and witnessed when it was kind of funny. A day before, or 2 days before, the incident happened at the lake with Simon and Jesus. One of Simon's brothers came running to him. Jesus got baptized by John the Baptist down in the river. And his brother came running to him and said, Simon, Simon, good news. The Messiah is here. I met him. And Simon he's in a bad spot in life. Very bad spot. He just kind of took the Roman soldiers and ran the boat ashore.
Right.
And they were basically giving him limited time to come up with a large sum of money of back taxes, or he's going to jail and being executed.
Yeah, he wasn't living that great life no more.
No, and his wife was tired of him. His wife was ready to basically kick him out because the way he was and at the time. And so when his brother told him, he actually was snotty to his brother and kind of blew him off. 2 days later, he went out. Well, it was the next day, overnight, he went fishing. He did overnight fishing. He figured he's going to try and catch the mother lode. And he had a couple others that wound up being disciples too. I think it was John. And then there's a couple other people on another fishing boat. The people who he saved with the Roman soldiers ran into him out in the water fishing. So they came and helped him, tried to help him because they wanted to bail him out, even though he was kind of a traitor.
Right.
Simon was kind of a traitor, and they knew that, but they respected him because he diverted the Roman soldiers, because if he did not do that, they would have all been in jail.
Right.
So they tried to help him, so they fished all night long. They didn't catch a thing. And then when they got to shore, obviously Matthew was on shore because he's watching Simon. And Simon knew Matthew was watching because they had a few exchange of words. But Jesus was on the shore teaching to a group of people. When they hit the shore, Simon's brother's like, Simon, Simon, he's the Messiah. He's the man I told you about. So Simon's like, okay, and he's like pulling his net in and getting ready to clean it. And Jesus ended his teaching, turns around, he walks over, he goes, how you doing, Simon? And Simon was like dumbfounded of, how do you know my name?
Right.
He turns around and goes, I know everything about you. He goes, do me a favor. And now, mind you, he's on shore, docked with the boat. Jesus says, do me a favor. He goes, throw your net in the water. And Simon's like, are you crazy? He goes, I've been up all night fishing. I didn't catch nothing. He goes, what do you think I'm going to catch here at the shore?
Right.
Jesus is like, just trust me. Throw your net in the shore. And his brothers now yell at him, Simon, he's the Messiah. Stop questioning him. Just do what he says. He's the one I told you. I watched him do miracles. Just do what he says. After some convincing, Simon's like, okay, whatever. He threw the net over the side. Sat there, man. All of a sudden, the net started pulling. He pulled up. There was so much fish, he could not even pull the net up. Where his buddies in the other boat all kind of ran into the water and all trying to pick the fish up. And when they got the fish in the boat, there was so much fish, it was starting to sink the boat to where they like trying to get the boat out of the water now. And there was more than enough fish to make him his money to pay back the Romans. And obviously right there, Simon right away walked up to Jesus and said, how can I repay you? And all what Jesus said is, follow me. Simon literally turned around and said, I'm following you. Meanwhile, the whole time, Matthew is over in the corner. Watching, and he's like dumbfounded of what he just watched and witnessed. And so he told Simon, follow me. So Simon said, okay, I'm with you. And a couple other people went and they followed Jesus. And that's what got Simon actually following Jesus.
Right.
Meanwhile, his buddies in the other boat, they cashed in all the fish for Simon. And they paid off Simon's whole debt. So he's debt free. And made extra money for Simon's wife. So Simon's family can still survive. And through this discipleship, what people don't realize is like everybody's like, how are these people following Jesus? And what are they all single? They wasn't. Simon was married.
Right.
But what Jesus knew is Simon was married. So Simon actually talked with his wife and Jesus talked to his wife. And she's a very understanding woman. And obviously she believed in Jesus and the miracles and that. So she was good with him being gone for weeks at a time. But what Jesus did is he forced Simon every now and then you go home. Be with your family. And he sent him home for days at a time to be with his family. So, and that's not really talked about a lot in the Bible. But if you read a lot of other literature written outside the Bible, some of it even talks about it like, I can't even remember his name now, but Simon's brother wrote a book, kind of, it was like it wasn't really a detail, it's more like a diary book.
Right.
That got released, and I read this like 2-3 years ago. I seen it. And he talks about his time of being Simon's brother.
Right.
And the things they went through, the hardships before Jesus, and all the stuff there, and then the good times after Jesus. And Simon's brother was not really a disciple, per se, with Jesus, but he is always tagging along type deal.
Right.
Like, whenever they're close, he'd go with them. He wouldn't do the long overnight, weeks at a time trips.
Right.
He did some of the shorter trips or whatever. But he wrote his own book about that and about taking care of Simon's wife, why in a family, and Simon's kids, why Simon was away. And this is how humble and everything was. Is Simon's mother-in-law was very sick when Jesus came into their life. We're talking very sick. And where she needed 24 care, and she's now living with Simon. So Simon was a little reluctant on going with Jesus because of that one fact.
Right.
But he did anyways. And Simon's brother actually wrote in the book too about this is Simon never asked Jesus for any help towards her. He watched Jesus make people, the cripple, walk. He watched him fix lepers. He watched him raise the dead. And he never once asked to help his mother-in-law.
Right.
Because he felt, believe it or not, and Simon says it in a couple of the writings, he did not feel worthy to even be with Jesus. He didn't feel worthy at all. And Actually, it was like a couple months after he was following Jesus. Jesus actually went to Simon's house, and Simon kind of tried to keep Jesus away from his house and wouldn't let him there because he didn't want him to know about the mother-in-law.
Right.
Obviously, Jesus first. He knew about the mother. So after a while, and for thanking Simon's wife for letting Simon follow him, Jesus showed up at Simon's house unexpectedly. And Simon was trying like, hey, yeah, let's get going, and try to like kind of push him out the door. Hey, let's get going. And he goes, no, hold on, relax. And he looked at Simon's wife, and he put his hand on her shoulders and said, everything's going to be okay. He walked past her, and she knew right away what he was doing. So she started obviously crying, and he walks into the room, and he healed the mother-in-law. And he came back, and Simon actually asked him, why did you do that? I didn't ask you to do that. He's like, because while you're on a trip with me, you're worried about her. And you're worried about your wife doing everything and you're not there. So she's taking care of the kids. She's taking care of her mother. And you're worried because she's overloaded on this, and she is overloaded. He goes, I need to make her better so she can help your wife. So it'll take the stress off your wife, which will take stress off you. He goes, so then you can follow me truly.
Right.
And learn.
Not have any other attachments.
So, but the moral of this little story is there's other writings outside the Bible that prove that a lot of this incident is happening. And then the other writings is not even from any of the disciples. Matthew actually went back to the emperor thing and said, hey, I witnessed this man Jesus tell Simon to throw the net in the river, and Simon pulled out all this fish. This is more than coincidence.
Right.
And he's like, I witnessed this. That's how he got the money to pay you back. I witnessed this. And the Roman leader was kind of like, dude, you're getting wacky. You're crazy.
Right.
But therefore, one of the soldiers who was assigned to him at all times was there, witnessed the thing with him. Because Matthew had a soldier that was actually assigned to protect him.
Right. He was kind of like the guy that just makes sure no one tries to hurt him.
Because everybody wanted to hurt him and everybody wanted to kill him.
Right.
So he was just assigned to Matthew. And he witnessed it. And he actually wrote a book saying about his little experience. I mean, he only had like several encounters with Jesus. Not a lot of them.
Right.
And he mentioned about seeing that, and he said how amazing it was. But the thing is seeing that changed Matthew a lot. Because even though Matthew was Jewish, he did not practice the Jewish faith.
Right, and you learn a lot more watching from the shadows than you do participating.
Exactly. But before Jesus, he was not practicing any religion, believe it or not. Matthew, because he's a tax collector and he's hated by everybody, he lived his life. Believe it or not, Matthew was kind of like, in nowadays terms, he'd be considered like autistic a little bit.
Okay.
Because he's very, very, very smart with numbers. He's very mathematicians with numbers and money and stuff like that. But he's also one of these type of guys where everything had its place. Everything was nice and neat.
Right.
Kind of like an OCD type person.
Right.
I mean, there was the soldier when he wrote his book about his time, God and Matthew, right? His little biography about God and Matthew of the time. Because obviously that had to be some big things you want to write about.
Oh, yeah,
here's a guy that turns around and gives up everything to follow Jesus, and you were his bodyguard for 4 or 5 years.
It's not just like a millions thing.
Yeah, so here's Matthew actually now starting to believe in God. Because of what he witnessed with Jesus,
right.
He started actually believing in God. And where Matthew actually tried to go and bond with his mother. and his father. He's like, because his mother and father were very, very religious.
Right, very strict on it.
And he never was, so, plus being a tax collector, he's exiled from the family.
Right.
But he tried to go and he tried to make amends and saying, I think I was wrong all these years because I'm witnessing this stuff from this guy.
Right.
But obviously because he's still a tax collector, his parents didn't want to hear it, get out, you know. And basically he had no love life. He had no relationship. His only companion was a puppy dog.
I mean, that seems reasonable if almost everyone hates you.
Yeah. And it was kind of funny because like a week after Jesus did that with Simon, they went back through the town and they're walking, and Matthew's in his tax collecting booth, okay? Collecting taxes. And it was kind of a pivot point for a lot of stuff. Because Jesus stopped and he looked right at Matthew. He says, Matthew of, I forgot what his father's name was. Because their last name was whatever his father's name is. And he says, Matthew of whatever. And, Matthew, son of whatever. And Matthew's like, yeah. He goes, follow me. And Matthew's like kind of dumbfounded because he's in this booth and he's collecting tax money from these people. He actually looked at Jesus and he says, who, me?
Right.
And it was kind of like Jesus actually, according to a lot of the writings, Jesus kind of laughed and said, yeah, you. And while he's doing that, Simon was actually on the side of Jesus saying, why him? Why are you taking him? Because obviously now Simon is not liking him because he was following Simon for so long.
Right, and they got a weird little thing going on.
So Simon's like, why him? Jesus looked right at Simon and he says, when I chose you, you felt you were not worthy, right? Simon goes, I still don't feel like I'm worthy. He says, exactly. We need him. And this is just such an amazing thing. This is proven fact. This is written by the God.
Right.
He actually walked out of that booth. He looked at the God who'd been protecting him for so long. Literally handed him his house keys, which he owned his own house. And he handed him his thing. He said, take these keys to my house. Take all my money.
Right.
Give it to my parents. Give everything to my parents. And the God's like, well, your parents don't like you. What if they don't want it? He said, then give it to the poor. Give it to Caesar.
Right.
I don't care.
I don't
Take
need it.
everything. And he actually literally gave everything. And you're talking a guy who was very, very rich.
He was making a pretty penny, yeah.
He walked away from everything and followed Jesus. No questions asked. Just by follow me. Just from what he saw, the couple incidences that he saw, but he also saw Jesus help that guy able to walk, the cripple.
Right.
That they dropped through the roof of the house.
Yeah.
And speaking about that one is, I have not physically seen this, obviously, but I was watching a couple things on scientific proof of the Bible.
Right.
There is actually, if you know how to find it and research it, I'm sure it's somewhere on the internet, there is actually proof of a huge gathering that the Romans actually had to send the soldiers out to break it up because it's too huge of a gathering. There's witness and proof of them. They could not get, with the cripple guy, they could not get to the front door or the back door because the house was so mobbed. There was literally hundreds of people surrounding this little house.
Right.
Where they actually somehow built up and people made a human ladder to get this guy and a person up onto the roof of this person's house. And then when they got up there, they tore boards off of the roof of the house so they could make a hole to see down in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also, can't remember what I was reading on. There's still actual public records of them having the roof repaired afterwards.
Really?
Yes. So, to say, is Jesus real?
100%.
There is so much scientific written proof, not even Bible written proof. You don't even have to go by the Bible. There is just so much different proof that, yeah, he is real. There's no way you can deny it. There's just too many coincidences of stuff coming up that shows that it's 100% real. Now, with that is, there were so many witnesses going on that it just made it so documented. There's no way how it can't be untrue. There's also scientific proof of, in facts, when Jesus was crucified.
Right.
The tomb that was given to him.
Yeah, didn't they uncover the real tomb?
Yes, they uncovered the real tomb, but also there's public record, because believe it or not, the Romans were excellent record keepers.
Huh.
The Romans, they say, the Egyptians and the Romans were the best two ever for keeping records. They documented everything that happened. And that's why, if you look, you hear a little bit about French kings or whatever.
Right.
Hear a little bit about English kings.
But it's all word of mouth.
Yeah, there's this. But you know what, Roman? If you really look, you can name every Roman king out there. Just about. And they're very documented, like Caesar. There's so much about Caesar, because Caesar was a very good documenter. And right to Caesar, right to the point where he was betrayed and killed.
Yeah.
By his best friend. It's all documented, like, so much, where the Romans, I mean, I swear to God, the Romans, the way they did stuff was so far advanced to where I bet you they have documents of every time the emperor went to the bathroom. Because they were documented so highly. And you got Roman soldiers that basically talk about a lot of these instances that are going on. That are proven facts.
Right.
And we're not even going to get into, like we talked about, science versus the Bible.
Yep.
Like I was telling you before we started the show, that would be like a 30-hour episode to really get through, because there's so much scientific, factual things that prove God is real.
Right.
And so I'm just touching somewhat of, not so much the scientific facts of it.
It's more the historical.
The historical facts. Because, believe the Bible or not, that's up to you.
Right.
But you can't deny
what's written
when you
down
got
on a piece of
when you
paper.
got 7 different people writing about the same incident happening.
Right.
And you're talking about 7 different people that never met each other. You're talking a Roman soldier, and then Simon's brother, who is a Jew,
right,
writing a lot of similar situations.
Accounts, yeah.
And you're talking about 2 guys who they didn't hang around in the bar and have the beers together.
No, not
They
at
were
all.
enemies. They probably never met really each other, but on the most part they were enemies. But you did not have a Roman and a Jew hanging around.
Right.
And that evidence, just with that little bit, I mean, how can you not believe in Jesus?
There's a lot of things historically that point to the truth and what actually happened, how it happened, and all that. And I sit there and wonder sometimes how you can have so much evidence presented to you, yet you still deny it.
Well, it kind of goes like this. This is kind of a funny fact. This is a true story. I have a friend who's an atheist. Okay?
Okay.
And it's funny because his whole thing is, how can I believe in something I don't see? I can't see. He's full-on atheist. But you want to hear an oxymoron? He believes in ghosts.
Really?
God's honest truth. He is a die-hard ghost hunter. Believes in ghosts 100%.
Has he seen any?
He claims he has. But he's an atheist. And he don't believe in God.
Right.
So, me and him have many long... I try not to have a lot of long conversations with this fella because... If you got ghosts, there's an afterlife.
Right.
True atheism...
In some sense.
Yeah. True atheism, there's nothing. When you die, there's blackness. You're done. There's nothing.
Right.
That's a true atheist. You can't believe in ghosts as an atheist.
Well, one good example I like is, and this is actually from the movie The Santa Claus, is when Charlie, the little boy, goes to Neil, who's his stepfather's talking to him, and says, well, how you believe in Santa, but you've never seen him? How can you believe in something you've never seen?
Yeah, and he asked him, have you ever seen $1 million?
Yeah.
And it's the God's honest truth. Yeah. And that's some of the oxymorons that you kind of see with people. Like him, he don't believe in God. He claims to be an atheist. He's a renowned atheist. But yet he believes in ghosts. And it's like, I tried to explain to him
that it makes no sense.
How absurd it is just to say that. I mean, I respect you. If you're atheist, I respect you. That's your belief.
Right, you do you.
But if you're atheist, don't believe in a ghost. Because it's kind of like saying, hey, I don't believe in cars or mode of transportation, but I'm going to take the bus.
Right.
It's still mode of transportation.
Right.
You can't have one
without the other.
Yeah. And you can't believe in one and then say you believe in the other. Now, I respect you if you're atheist. That's what you do. And I would never push anything past. But there is so much factual. The problem with society today is everybody sits there with closed minds.
Right.
And it's with everything. It's not even just with religion. But everything going on in the world today, everybody has a closed mind. They listen to what TV media tells you.
Well, everyone nowadays takes everything for face value. Okay, this is what it is. This is how I'm going to react to it.
Yeah.
They don't take the time to do their own research and form their own opinion.
Exactly. And there is so many discussions to have about God that is just factual. And the thing is don't take my word for it.
Right, go do your own stuff.
Do the research. You'll find out the factual stuff. Like there's proof of Noah and Noah's Ark. There's proof of the great floods. Everything that happens, there's proof of the well that the Somalis used. Now the well is something that was long before Jesus in Somalia.
Right.
They built it because God told them to build this well in this area, because that was where the water was going to be.
Well, actually, on Disney Plus, there's a movie. Is it a movie? I think it's a documentary about Jesus' tomb. And I guess somewhere in Jerusalem, I would assume, or wherever he was buried, I don't know.
Well, it was in the valleys beyond Jerusalem.
Yeah, they have like a whole thing built around it.
Yeah.
And it's like a tourist attraction, pretty much.
Yep.
And yeah, that's like a real place you can go to.
Oh yeah. And that tomb was actually, I can't remember the guy's name, but he is very well, very high powered in Israel at the time.
Right.
And he actually had the tomb made for himself and his family. And he actually, when Jesus was crucified, because he believed in Jesus so much, he actually gave it up to Jesus.
Really?
Yes. So, he's a very wealthy, powerful man, gave up his tomb to Jesus Christ.
Right.
For him to have for the 3 days. Pretty much.
Airbnb.
Here's your short stay. But there's a lot of accounts about that man too. I wish I could remember his name, but obviously being late at night, my brain ain't at full capacity right now. But he, you research him and his things. He was a very highly respected guy in Israel, and very wealthy too. And believe it or not, he did not follow Jesus. He was not a disciple of Jesus. All he did was he witnessed a few of Jesus' miracles. That's all he did. He witnessed a few miracles I witnessed. So when he found out that Jesus was being crucified, he fought to try and get Jesus freed. And didn't succeed, obviously. So when Jesus was dead, he actually went to the Roman emperor himself and said, please, you guys did what you had to do. You crucified him. Let me please have the body and give him a proper burial.
And he went and buried him in the tomb.
And that's what he did. He got him robed up for burial, did the ritual, and had him entombed in the tomb. And even the Romans let him do that. The Romans put soldiers guard in the tomb.
Really?
There was 2 soldiers that guarded the tomb to make sure nobody could roll that rock away, because it was the known fact that he's going to be resurrected in 3 days.
Right.
So he wanted to make sure, because and the Pharisees of Israel also wanted to make sure that it didn't happen, because here's the deal. They all knew that everybody followed him.
Right.
And they all knew that there were the believers that loved him and believed in him, but there's also the doubters and haters.
Right.
But everybody knew the whole story, that when he died, 3 days later, he's going to rise and be resurrected.
Be good, yeah.
The Roman emperor, and the Pharisees of Israel knew that no matter what, at any cost, this could not happen.
Right.
Because if this happens, it will prove that he's actually the Messiah, and it's gonna
be bad for everyone.
Well,
business-wise.
Yeah, it was gonna take Julius Caesar, was now gonna be a nobody, not just a king. He ain't gonna be anybody, because there's the King of Kings now.
Right.
And it's gonna take the Pharisees, because it's gonna prove that, man, they just crucified an innocent man.
Mm-hmm.
They've crucified God. And so nobody wanted to see that happen as far as them.
No.
That's why they put 2 gods on to watch the rock. Now, it's a known fact that one of the gods actually wrote a little short biography about the day of resurrection. And in that, if you read it, he actually wrote how they were standing God, and they standing there, and all of a sudden this bright light came down in front of them. And they're looking at the light, and that's the last thing they remember until when they came to, Mary was coming up the hill to the tomb, but the tomb was already open.
Right, and didn't he first appear to her?
No, he did not. Well, not at that time. When she got to the tomb and noticed he was gone, an angel came.
Okay.
And the angel said, "Go tell the disciples to meet Jesus in Galilee." See, that's where they're supposed to meet back. That's what he told his disciples when he's dying, or when he's going to be crucified. Go down to Galilee. We will all meet at our place in Galilee. Obviously, when he died, all the disciples are like, "Oh, poor me, what am I going to do now? I gave away everything to follow this guy. Now he's dead. Now we got nothing.
Now what do we do?"
Now what do we do? So they're all in pity party. So that angel said, "Jesus is on his way to Galilee. Get the guys down there." So she went running back, told the guys, "Hey, Jesus is resurrected. He's going down to Galilee. You gotta go meet him."
Right.
And nobody would listen. So then she went out somewhere else, and I can't remember where she went. Oh, I think she's going to find Peter, because Peter was not with the group.
Okay.
And on her way to find Peter, that's when she ran into Jesus for the first time. And he told her, "Talk to the guys, get them down to Galilee." So then she went to talk to Peter, and Peter was kind of like, "Leave me alone. My best friend died. Leave me alone. Go away." So she ran back to the group, and they were all into one room. And then Jesus came in and appeared to all. Now, when he appeared to Mary, he was not in his normal Jesus form. But she knew it was him just by the way he spoke.
Right, his presence.
And his presence, yes. But there's the Roman gods that wrote that book about the incidents of Day of Resurrection. And it's a known fact, and even the gods said, there's no way Mary moved that rock.
Right.
That rock was so heavy, it took 10 men to roll it in front of the...
Right, and so it's not like some breeze is just gonna go by and knock it over.
Exactly. And they said that they seen this powerful light. They said it was like the sun went right down between the two of them.
Huh.
And then they blinked out, like passed out. Woke up an hour later, and the tomb was empty.
Huh.
So, and this is people who was actually there, not even saying about the Bible. Like, he never once says in his book how he is a follower of Jesus or a believer in Jesus. He never once says what religion he is.
Right.
So we don't know what he is, It's kind of like...
We're really just guessing.
We don't know what he is. I mean, myself, I'm one guessing he's a believer in Jesus. Because I know if I've seen that right there, I mean...
Right.
Hello? That's like saying, hey, getting hit in the head with a board, and then you're not going to believe that you got hit in the head with the board. No, you just got hit in the head with the board.
Right, you're going to know it.
You're going to know it. So, there is just so much evidence. And another point that I hear a lot of people making. Like, people say, what if you're wrong for believing in God and Jesus?
What's the worst that's going to happen besides...
So I live my life believing in Jesus. If I die and I'm wrong and there's no heaven, there's no hell, I just go blank, right? What did I lose?
No.
But now, say you don't believe in Jesus or God, and you go through life not believing. When you die and you're wrong, what's the consequences?
All right.
Eternal life in hell.
It's just like there's really nothing to lose when you're doing it, when you're living, knowing that he's alive. Because, yeah, sure, let's say nobody knows for a fact, right?
Yep.
Nobody knows 100%. And so, yeah, cool. You don't want to do it because you don't know and whatever. But it's, I just lost my train of thought.
It's better to...
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm saying.
It's better to follow Jesus and believe in Jesus and love Jesus and truly go that route and be wrong than to not follow Jesus and God and love God.
Right.
And be wrong. Because you know what? If you're wrong being a believer, so what? You had a belief all your life. And
exactly.
you die.
And it made you happier.
Yep.
And that's what I was getting on before I lost my train of thought, was that living the life of a Christian and trying to get into heaven, let's say there is none when you get back. What's the worst that's going to happen?
You got none.
Exactly.
You was wrong. Big deal, but you still had a happy, healthy life.
Exactly.
But now if you're wrong on the other aspect, you got eternal life of hell.
Right.
So, I mean, the consequences, you know what? I'd rather be wrong on a safe side than wrong on a oh boy side.
Yeah. I rather, when I'm walking up those stairs, I'd rather be like, oh, cool, okay, it's just nothing, than walk up and be like, oh no.
Uh-oh. That's red fire right there. Oh boy. Eternal life of torture.
You walk up and then there's an elevator going straight down.
Yep. It's like, but the thing is I must say, we're not wrong. There is too much evidence to prove that we're right.
Right.
Which we didn't get into in this episode at all, but we can on another episode, is the scientific facts that prove that there's an almighty God. There is so many scientific facts. There's actually scientists who've been atheists for years.
Who are converting over.
Who are all converting over to being Christians. I mean,
it doesn't get more real than that.
I don't know, but
because when you think scientists, you think atheist. You think trying to disprove the existence of God.
Trying to prove evolution over God.
Creativity or whatever.
You're
creation.
trying to prove that a Big Bang created everything and not God.
Right.
And you're trying to prove that all this stuff to prove that there is no supreme being, but they're all coming to the same conclusion now of, dude, there's got to be a supreme being. This stuff is not possible without a maker.
Right.
And I look at it like this, is you get a scientist, and some of these scientists are like some of the smartest men in the world. You got the smartest man in the world who all his life says, yeah, there ain't no supreme being. I know better. I'm the smartest man in the world.
And then all of a sudden
he's like, hey, you know what? I might be an idiot.
Right, I might be wrong.
Yeah, you know, for this to happen, you have to have somebody controlling it.
Right.
And then they turn Christian, and you know what? That's quite the powerful conversion.
Oh yeah,
that is the ultimate coming to God story.
Definitely.
There's just so much on the scientific side that is just factual to the point where even if you don't want to believe, but if you open your mind to the truth, you can't help but to believe.
Right.
And that's the problem, is so many people are closed-minded, just like with everything else. I mean, there's the Trump haters. People hate Trump. They don't know why they hate him, but they hate him.
Right.
Oh, he's a bigot, he's a racist, he's this, he's that. No, he's not. You're saying that because that's what the media is saying.
And the same goes for the other end of the spectrum.
The other end of the spectrum, the other way, 100%. You're all Trump, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. If he does something wrong, oh no, he didn't do nothing wrong. Democrats did that. No, he does do wrong. He's still human. He's still president.
Right.
There's good with bad, and there's bad with good.
Right.
Yes, myself, I like Trump. I think he's doing a great job. Do I think he's perfect? No. Do I think he makes a mistake? 100%. He's made quite a few, and he ain't a good speaker. I admit that. He says some stupid stuff that is like...
I wouldn't say he's not a good speaker. He just doesn't think before he speaks.
Like, what is that one where he talked about the football team, and he thanked the wrong state.
Oh.
Because there's one in each state which are adjacent to each other. What team is that? It's a football team. I think it was in the Super Bowl. They're Super Bowl winners.
I'm trying to think.
Kansas City. Yeah.
Kansas City and San Francisco 49ers.
No, but it's Kansas City won.
Yeah.
And he thanked Kansas. Because there's just Kansas City and Kansas. And Kansas City's football team is in Missouri.
Is it?
Yes.
Huh.
So that was a big thing where he's like, oh, Kansas, great job winning the Super Bowl.
Well,
and it wasn't even them, it was Missouri.
It was funny. I had a drill sergeant when I was in basic. And he was new. He just fresh out of drill sergeant school, and we only had like 2 weeks left of basic at this point. We're still in the child line, and we're not allowed to talk, basic stuff. And the drill sergeant said, "Who here is Kansas City Chiefs fan?" And so there's one person who happened to be in my platoon. I was pretty cool with him, who raised his hand, and he said, the drill sergeant goes, "Oh, so you're a Kansas City fan?" And the kid goes, "Well, I'm not really into football, but I'm from Kansas." And the drill sergeant just sits there, looks at him dumbfounded for a second, and he says, "Kansas City isn't in Kansas. Kansas City's in Missouri." And the kid just sat there like, "Oh."
There is a Kansas City in Kansas, but that's not where the football team is located.
No, and it's just like for the longest time, I thought the Washington Redskins were in Washington State.
I did for many years too, when I was younger, and then we'll find out it's DC. Who knew? Heck, I remember at one point when I was a kid, I thought Green Bay was in New York.
Oh, really?
I didn't know it was in Florida.
That's right. This is something pretty funny. I was telling Abby this the other day. When I was it took me, I think it was like 12 or 13 years to realize At Gunpoint wasn't a place. Because I remember, because you go on the news and you see, man robbed at gunpoint, blah. I legitimately thought, in my head, Gunpoint was a place. For whatever reason in my head, the two things didn't click. And I was sitting there one time at a Boy Scout event, and we were sitting around the campfire.
You asked what Gunpoint was?
No, well, kinda. Something like that. We're sitting around, and one of the leaders got a notification on his phone. He looks and he starts telling us. He told the other leaders saying, "Hey, I can't remember where it was, but it was like a big thing that was going on." He's like, he was like 10 people are held at gunpoint, and I sat there, and I had the audacity to say, "Why do people keep going there? Nothing good ever happens at gunpoint. Why do?" And everyone's standing around me. They're looking at me. With the most dumbfounded look on their face.
They're looking at you like...
They're trying to figure...
he needs to be drug tested over here.
They're looking at me like they can't even figure out what I'm trying to say. And everyone looks at me, and then finally it clicks in one of their heads and says, "I think it's a real place." And he's like, "Devin, do you know it's not like a location, right? At gunpoint, it was when someone points a gun at you." And it was actually Mr. Lavoie who did that.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was like, "Oh." That makes so much more sense.
I wonder why every night people were going to gunpoint.
Right. It's like clearly a bad neighborhood. You don't want to be there. Yeah, it was.
So, back on kind of straight a little bit, but back on the concepts. Without getting into scientific stuff, there is a lot of written history.
Right.
Which is factual history because it's written by people who witnessed, but it's not the Bible. Like people say, oh, the Bible was written by man. It was written by man, 100%. Man hand wrote it.
But it was inspired by God.
But it was told by God or told by Jesus. It's kind of like, I am not a fast typer. A lot of CEOs of big companies, they're not fast typers. So they pay a secretary who can type very fast to write the memo. And he'll sit there and say, hey, I need to talk to John Smith. I need to tell John Smith, XYZ, da, da, da. And they have the secretaries type it up.
Right.
Because they're fast typers. God is not going to write
the message
in a book. He put the message through us.
Exactly.
And the thing is if you're really in tune and get in tune with God and unite with God, He will speak to you. But you got to be listening. It's kind of like I hear everybody, oh, I pray to God, but He never talks back. Yes, He does.
You're just not going to hear a voice in your head. And if you do, you need to get it checked out.
He ain't going to come in front of you and say, hey, Devin, this is God. How's it going, man? How's you hanging?
Right.
He ain't going to do it.
Right.
He ain't going to smack you in the back of the head and say, dude, listen. He talks to you, but you got to listen. And
you got to pay attention.
You got to pay attention, but you got to be in tune and in sync with Him. And people don't tend to in tune with it. People make a prayer because they want $1 million. Right. They only make a prayer because they want something. They're not doing an actual prayer. Because technically, when you pray, you're not supposed to pray for stuff.
No, because He already knows what you need.
You're supposed to do the Lord's Prayer. Right in the Bible, if you read the Bible, there's the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, thou in heaven. Mm-hmm. You say the Lord's Prayer. He knows what you want. You don't have to tell Him what you want. He knows. The only thing outside of a prayer that you should be doing is, thank you, God, for another day.
Exactly.
Thank you, God, for waking me up for another day.
And we touched on that. I think it was last episode or 2 episodes.
You got to thank Him for what He does. You don't pray to Him for what you want.
Right.
And then on top of it, like I hear people, oh, He never answers my prayer. No kidding, because you ask Him for $1 million every freaking day. He ain't going to give you your earthly goods.
Right.
He is not
gonna get you that new husband.
There's a big difference that people don't understand. There's the earthly
needs
man Rome, then there's the godly Rome. He's gonna help you out in a godly Rome or realm. He's gonna help you in godly land. He ain't gonna help you on the earthly land. The earthly things are not what He's looking to help. Now, will He provide you with your needs? He will. Will He help you with your wants? He will not. So, if you're hungry and you need food, if you believe in God and you listen to God, He will get you fed.
Right.
May not be Carolina Steakhouse freaking 5-course meal, but He'll get you fed.
Right.
He's gonna help you get what you need. If you have no place to live, you believe and He will get a roof over your head. He will get you a place to live. He won't leave you out in the cold, freezing to death. Right. If you believe and you grasp Him. Problem is nobody does. I want $1 million, or I want to win the lottery, or I want a girlfriend, or I want a boyfriend. He ain't gonna give you that.
No.
That's not of godly things. That's of earthly wants. But you gotta get in tune to listen to Him, and He'll even tell you that. If you really listen to Him, He's gonna answer your prayers and tell you, hey, yeah, I'll help you out with this, buddy, but that, no. Sorry. Right. You're on your own. But He also, besides just answering prayers and stuff like that, He also tells us what our missions are in life. And everybody has their own little mission that God has set out for you. Problem is, nobody listens to God. So nobody knows what the mission is. So you're wandering aimlessly on the earth in the earthly realm of things.
Right, realm.
Realm. So you really gotta stop and listen to God. And with this episode, like, I want my viewers to research God, research Jesus, research facts of the day.
So
I mean, you can research Matthew. I mean, there is so much literature about tax collectors in that era. Not even just Matthew, all the tax collectors. There is so much literature because they are the one people that were. I don't think you could get any lower form of life. I think the Jews would have rather sat down and had lunch with Satan than a tax collector.
right.
You can't get any lower of a life form. So there's a lot of writings, like a lot of tax collectors back then. They actually wrote biographies about what they had to do, and it was said that they did these writings kind of as a asking for forgiveness of, hey, look, I didn't know what else to do, but I needed to survive. I needed to make money, so I did this job because, one, I was afraid of the Romans. See, a lot of tax collectors, they did it. One, they're good with numbers, they're good with money, and they were afraid of dying from the Romans. But they're Jew, so they figure if they go as tax collectors, tax collectors got protected by the Romans. Even though the Romans hated them, they still come to the Romans. Right. The Romans protected them, and so long as you did your job good, you were safe and set for life, and that's what they did.
So is that what you want to make the comment section this week? Is do some research and let us know what you find?
Yeah, I want people to research it. I'm truly research all of it. Research all the disciples. Research Mary. There's a lot of writings about Mary.
Mary Magdalene.
Yes. And there's, I want you to research, and you know what? If you find more than that I've found over the years, please share it so that I can look it up and read more. I love reading more about different stuff of that time and that era and the stuff that goes on, because every time I find something new, these little tidbits that I gain more, and it's like, wow, I didn't even know that.
Right.
Different stuff, like, I didn't know before Jesus Christ that it was made that you could only pray, and only place to legally pray where God was going to hear it, that way the beliefs was either in a temple or at the water well. Were the only two places to truly pray, at least that was believed, to be accepted.
I didn't know that.
And when Jesus came around, and he actually said it to the girl at Somalia, he told her, he goes, I'm going to make a change. From now on, I'm going to teach everybody, you don't have to be praying in a temple. The temple is not made for you to have to pray at. Right. You don't have to pray at the well no more. He goes, you can pray at home. You can pray in private. You pray in your heart. I'm going to put prayer in your heart, not a building, not a water drinking well. And she's like, really? And she asked him, so you promise? And he's like, I promise. I'm telling you, you pray at home. That's the true place to pray. The actual best way to pray is you're supposed to pray in private. That's what he teaches. So praying in the temple is not really... I mean, we all pray in the temple, and yeah, you do group prayers.
Right, but that's not the main place.
But that's not you and God, that's your group and God.
Right.
For a true, honest marriage and relationship with God is to pray alone.
Right.
I know this is going to sound kind of perverse, but you don't get intimate with your wife with a group of people.
Right.
You do it in the privacy of your own home.
You do it between you two.
And that's what your relationship with God and prayer should be. So I really want people to research and tell me what you're finding. Okay, I wanna learn more. Because every time I find more, I get fascinated. I love getting those little tidbit extras. I want to read another verse. This is Psalms again. Forgot what Psalms it is. It's Psalms 27, 1 through 5. Shout for joy to the Lord, all earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter the gates with thankfulness, and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name, for the Lord is good, and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues throughout the generations. I thought that was a good one to end. Okay. Because it is the holy truth that whether you want to believe, you care to believe, or you do believe.
Right.
You are God's child.
And at the end of the day,
He loves you to death. But bottom line is, if you don't love him back in the end, he's going to give you to his stepbrother. To Satan. And God will fight for your love, but you got to let him in for the fight. So with that, give me comments. Let me know what you find. Please like and share. That's about it. Hope you guys all have a blessed week.